Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening, good people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining. We are going to give folks a moment to join us. Joining us from, let us know what brought you to this conversation tonight. Would love to hear from y'all as we prepare for this conversation this evening. It is going to be amazing. If you have never joined a Women's March Live, you might be like, who is this lady? My name is Tamika Middleton. I am the Chief Political and Strategy Officer at Women's March. And I am based in Atlanta, Georgia, and super excited always to be with y'all. We are joined today by a number of our amazing partner organizations, Feminist Generation and Free Speech for People, and Women's March are all hosting this event together. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Shout out to y'all. There's a lot of y'all from the Midwest in here. Welcome, all of the Illinois family, all the Midwest family, Michigan. I see you East Coasters. I see Chicago, South Jersey, Ohio's in here. And so keep introducing yourselves. If you're just joining us, please do keep introducing yourself. Again, my name is Tamika Middleton. I am the Chief Political and Strategy Officer here at Women's March. Oh, hey, Atlanta neighbor. And so I want to share a little bit on the tech side. If you are in need of closed captions for this conversation, I want to invite you to join us over on Facebook because that is where you will find live closed captions. Unfortunately, YouTube does not have that functionality yet, but if you want to catch it after the stream is done, you can find closed captions there afterwards. If you want closed captions during the stream, join us over on Facebook. The other thing I want to make very clear is we love to build a space that is inclusive, that is warm and welcoming, and that invites new everyday folks into the conversation and into the movement. So we want to keep doing that. And in order to do that, we have to be really mindful of how we communicate with each other in this chat. I want y'all to be clear that some of these folks are new to the movement and we want to make space for them. And some of you may know a little bit more, may have a little bit more grounding. We want you to enter with curiosity and not with critique. And so creating space for us to grow our base, to grow our numbers, to build our movement. So if we find that you are not able to do that, that you are creating toxicity, creating hostility in the chat, if we find you are spamming the chat, good friends, the Women's March team is very, very particular and very strong with the band hand. So we want you to be in the chat. We want you to talk to us. And also, we want you to be respectful of each other. All right? If you can do that, give me a thumbs up, give me a yes in the chat, whatever. Let me know that you are hearing that because we want to create a wonderful, beautiful space and beautiful conversation tonight. All right. So tonight we have a wonderful, beautiful lineup of guests, including Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, Satere Ganahari of Detention Watch Network, John Bonifaz of Free Speech for People, and Rosie. I'm so sorry, Rosie. Your name's not in the your last name's not in the document. I apologize. Rosie Couture. There we go, from Feminist Generation. And so we're really excited for you to hear from all of these speakers tonight as we prepare ourselves for International Women's Day. So International Women's Day is Sunday, March 8th. Please do mark your calendars. And we're getting ready for that by getting grounded in the core demands. And that is here for us, justice for survivors and an America free of a regime that attacks, abuses, and kidnaps women and children. So what we know is that the Trump regime has been continues to act like the law does not apply to them. And that is true as they send ICE into our communities to spread fear and to trample people's constitutional rights, as they hide the Epstein files and shield powerful abusers from accountability. It is the same pattern. Powerful men and powerful institutions brutalizing women and children with impunity, and a government that protects the abusers instead of the survivors. And so tonight, on March 8th and beyond, we are not staying silent. We are not staying compliant. We will not be complicit. So tonight we're going to hear from leaders who are fighting back on both fronts. And we're going to talk about how every single one of us, yes, every single one of you who are joining this call tonight, can take action in this critical moment. So we'll hear from Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, who has introduced the Melt ICE Act, which is an act to abolish ICE and move us closer to dismantling DHS altogether, and who has also been a champion for gender justice. And then we'll hear from Feminist Generation, from Rosie Couture, on justice for survivors of sexual violence, including Epstein survivors whose justice is being actively obstructed by the DOJ. And we'll hear from Saturday of Detention Watch Network about the work that they are doing, the powerful work they are doing for immigrants and around and against ICE. So it's the same system. Let's be clear about that, y'all. Same system. It is the same fight and the same demand: justice for women and children and accountability for every single institution that has failed them and continues to fail them. So as we continue this conversation, we want you to keep introducing yourself. Shout out. We see you all here from West Virginia. I saw some South Carolina, shout out, my home state, Connecticut, New York City, all over the country. We're so grateful for you all joining us. We want you throughout the night to continue to drop your questions in the chat. At the end, we will try to catch some of them in the Q&A. And we want you to continue to be kind to each other in the chat. And also know that after this is over, if you have to leave, if you have friends who want to catch it later, the recording will live on our YouTube channel. So with that, just want you to know that the speakers may not respond to you in real time, but we are going to get to as many of these questions as possible in the end. So first up, I want to invite, and I feel like you told it to me and then I botched it, and I'm so sorry, Setere Gandahari of Detention Watch Network, to speak and share with us about how ICE is harming our communities. I'm going to do my very best to get this right. Thank you, Setere.
Thanks, Tamika. I appreciate the effort. You did a good job. Hi, everyone. My name is Setara Kandahari, and I am the Advocacy Director at Detention Watch Network, which is a national coalition building power through collective advocacy, grassroots organizing, and strategic communications to end immigration detention in the United States. And for nearly 30 years, we have been dedicated to exposing the depravity of the immigration detention system in the US, a system that is fundamentally inhumane, unnecessary, and deadly. In immigration detention, people are deprived of freedom, they're caged in isolation, and made to suffer abysmal conditions, including medical neglect, physical, verbal, sexual abuse, overcrowding, insufficient access to necessities like food and water, and rampant transfers between facilities that disappear people into the detention system, sowing confusion and cutting people off from their loved ones and support networks. In the last year, we have heard people in immigration detention describe it as hell on earth, because it is. And all of this has been true for decades, as ICE has evaded attempts at reform, oversight, and accountability at every turn and under multiple administrations during its short 23-year existence. Last month's events in Minneapolis shocked the American conscience as federal agents gunned down Americans in broad daylight. Let me be clear, ICE is operating with total impunity, emboldened by outrageous and ever-growing funding, greenlit by Congress year after year. The heightened cruelty under this current administration has exacerbated the existing violent culture of ICE and CBP and the inhumane conditions inherent to ICE's detention system. The system has expanded exponentially in the last year, with a shocking 70,000 people in ICE detention today. Last year, 2025 was the deadliest year on record for deaths in ICE custody. And in just the first 2 months of this year, 8 people have already died in ICE detention. setting us on course to reach another deadly milestone. In addition to being responsible for the deaths of people behind the walls of ICE detention, ICE agents, as many of you know, have been responsible for multiple killings as they have rampaged communities across the country, snatching people from their homes, cars, schools, and workplaces, tearing families apart, chasing people into traffic, and shooting people on the streets of American cities. The evidence against ICE is indisputable. ICE kills people, and ICE threatens community safety. And no one is safe when ICE is present, whether on the streets or in one of the agency's more than 200 abuse-ridden detention sites. ICE is the largest enforcement agency in the country, operating with never-before-seen funding to maintain and expand the largest immigration detention system in the world. For the last year, we've seen the current administration carry out a multi-layered detention expansion plan that has shamefully included bringing back family detention, proliferating ICE operations into other government agencies, using military bases as deportation hubs, deepening ties with private prison companies, and growing ICE partnerships with local sheriffs and county jails. And most recently, reports have revealed that ICE intends to spend nearly $40 billion on expanding the detention system into industrial warehouses across the country. As some of you may know, last summer, Congress handed the administration basically a blank check worth more than $170 billion to carry out its mass detention and deportation agenda, including $45 billion specifically for immigration detention. And ICE is using that money to build out a horrific warehouse detention system to cage people like commodities. This mind-blowing investment into the immigration detention system, driven by Trump's mass deportation campaign, comes at the expense of all Americans, as people lose healthcare, children go hungry, and families struggle to pay rent and worry over emergency preparedness. I'll say that again. Trump is executing his cruel mass deportation agenda at the expense of life-saving healthcare, food assistance, and other programs that exist to support all Americans. Make no mistake, as a nation, we are at a critical inflection point, and the violence of ICE and Border Patrol agents is decades in the making. But we're clear-eyed, the American public is clear-eyed, and won't be duped by staffing shakeups or misleading announcements. We know that ICE continues to violently target communities in Minnesota and across the country today. So now is not the time for Congress to be complicit in business as usual. No more endless funding for ICE, no more abuse and death at the hands of ICE, no more cruel detention, and no more chaos. People are struggling, and people deserve investments in healthcare, housing, education, and programs that support all of us instead of detention and deportation of immigrants by an agency that is rotten to its core. And I know you're all here on this call. Folks are standing up every day, and people across the country are doing what's right. They're coming together to push back against immigration detention centers, to defend their neighbors in the face of state violence, to protest to make their demands heard, and to take care of each other when systems have failed them. And now it's time for Congress to do the right thing. And I'm talking about this right now because we're at a critical moment in funding negotiations for DHS, Department of Homeland Security. And Congress has a couple of, many options before them to push back against what this administration is doing. In the ongoing DHS funding negotiations, we're really clear. The only acceptable path forward is to zero out ICE and Border Patrol funding and to claw back the billions of dollars given to these agencies in last year's reconciliation package to effectively stop them from inflicting more violence on our communities. Congress must act now to cut ICE and Border Patrol off, cut their flow of money, to get ICE out of our communities, and to shut down detention once and for all. And beyond this funding fight, we are very proud to stand with Representative Ramirez, as an organization to endorse the Melt Ice Act, and we encourage members of Congress to support this bill as well, and encourage all of you to reach out to your members of Congress to support this bill. Melt Ice would take a huge critical step towards dismantling ICE's ability to violently attack our communities and would finally end ICE detention. So I'll just end by saying, please, even if you've done it already, once, twice, 10 times, call your members of Congress again, reach out to them, push them to cut ICE funding, push them to hold the line in these negotiations around DHS funding, and push them to support Melt Ice and other acts that would push back against what ICE is doing right now.
Thank you so much, Satare, for all that you are doing, for being here with us tonight, for the leadership of the Detention Watch Network. We are so grateful for you being here. There is a quote as you were speaking that came to mind from Black freedom fighter Assata Shakur that says, "A wall is just a wall and nothing more at all. It can be broken down." And every time I think about, the reality that ICE is only 23 years old, it reminds me it is just a wall. It can be broken down. We can abolish ICE. And so I'm so grateful to bring up next Congresswoman Ramirez to talk about Melt ICE Act and what she is up to take us forward in this fight to melt ICE.
I want to start by saying to you, I'm taken back a bit when you said the 23 years and we can take these walls down, right? I think it's so important for people to have that kind of context. And it's why we're here today, because we understand the mission and we understand the work that is ahead, and that none of this work could be done without all of us in this work together. So I want to just say thank you to Feminist Generation, Free Speech for People, and Women's March, and all the organizations here today for putting tonight's town hall together. A special thank you to the Detention Watch Network for all the work that you're doing and helping me move this bill along. As you heard, congresista, I like to say that, to defy all those trolls that hate me because I'm proud of my roots. So I say congresista Delia Catalina Ramirez. And I always start by bringing my mother into every space I'm in, because I'm the proud daughter of Guatemalan immigrants, elected to Congress as the first Latina from the Midwest, and fighting like heaven and hell for my community and my neighbors, regardless of people's status or their background. And I mention my mom because the story of my mom, a woman who crossed the border pregnant with me, reminds me that migration and protecting women are inextricably linked. And after a really heavy week of resisting fascism in DC and looking at evil straight in the eyes, I'm talking about Kristi Noem, as I met with her yesterday in DHS headquarters, I got to tell you, I'm really glad to be joining people who are ready to fight for our shared humanity, for our civil rights and our democracy. Because you understand that our liberties are interconnected and that our fight for women's rights is also the fight for immigrant justice. You see, I serve on the Committee of Homeland Security in Congress, where for over a year, I've been conducting oversight of this administration's use of DHS to violate our civil rights. I've been to the border. I've gone to detention centers. I've been in court. And I've seen the dehumanizing conditions our neighbors, including women and children, are enduring every single day. So I'm clear that the Department of Homeland Security is the biggest threat to our collective safety, and funding it only fuels our own destruction and suffering. And as a Chicagoan, I know that the terror that DHS can inflict with its unlimited resources and the unchecked power it's operating under. Because for over a year, you and I have seen how we've been surveilled, threatened, tear gas, shot, subjected to warrantless arrest, rammed with vehicles, kidnapped, disappeared. And we've also seen our own neighbors, our own family get murdered by this administration. We've witnessed the violence of that DHS inflicted in Chicago with the shooting of our neighbors like Marimar, the dragging of women out of their cars, and the murder of loved ones like Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in Chicago. And then we watched them through videos and testimonies go on and terrorize Minneapolis, where we all know and we saw how they murdered Renee and how they executed Alex Preddy. We've read about and seen the aggression and the sexual violence that they perpetrate against women, including pregnant women in detention centers. We've heard the lies that they tried to feed us, that Christine Noem tried to feed me last night. But we are clear. We will not forget what we have seen with our own eyes. We will not forget the murders of our neighbors and our loved ones. And I say this loud and clear over and over, and I feel like I have to say it again. There will be accountability for the violence that they've committed. It doesn't end with just an impeachment of a secretary. Every single agent, every person in this administration who's responsible must be held accountable. And it's why I'm committed to using every tool at my disposal, including the power of the purse, to protect our communities from Trump and DHS's campaign of terror, of death and destruction. And look, you and I know that at a time when our communities are facing a crushing crisis of affordability, we have to take our resources and redirect them towards every single thing that our working people need to thrive. I'm talking about housing. I'm talking about food. I'm talking about healthcare, reproductive care, education, and so much more. And my bill, Melt ICE Act, is a start. Frankly, it's a line in the sand. What does the bill do? It ends DHS's immigration detention and monitoring. It disrupts immigration enforcement. And then it takes all of that money they're using to terrorize us and returns it to our communities so that we can actually access those resources for healthcare, for housing, and critical services. That is exactly what every single member of Congress should be working towards, redirecting this money back to community for community. And I'm clear that this moment requires us to move beyond statements, to demonstrate our commitment with real accountability and real action. And so every single Democrat who is saying that it is unacceptable that DHS is terrorizing our communities has to listen to the growing number of Americans calling for more than training, more than reform, and more than the bare minimum policy. Everyone. Now I'm going to also say, including Republicans that are saying that they're standing up for women, must understand that justice for all women is also immigrant justice. And it demands a dismantling of systems that criminalize migration, tear apart families, and deny immigrants access to safety and full personhood. And we note that an agency established to violate our rights under the pretense of ensuring our security, it can't be reformed. It has to be dismantled, ended, abolished, piece by piece. And we need something new. A system that honors our rights, our dignity, our humanity. And so that means we don't have to just abolish ICE. We need to dismantle and abolish DHS as well. And as I heard at the beginning, we brought ICE and DHS into this world. It wasn't created with our founding fathers, like people attempt to say. We can build a world without it. So today is an invitation for every member of Congress to join me in saying, let's melt ICE and dismantle DHS. And how we do that is with your help, with your advocacy, with your organizing, because we should have every member of Congress that says that they want to stand up for their neighbors joining me as a co-sponsor of Melt ICE. So thank you and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Congresista,
Thank you.
much for all of your work.
I like it.
I want to ask you, we had a couple people in the comments asking us how they can get access to the bill. Where can they find the bill?
Mm-hmm. So the bill's on my website and it's on socials. I don't know if my comms person is on. Let me see. He's probably answering now.
Yes,
I see him getting on now.
There we go.
It's first of all, the bill is HR 7190. So it's easy to be able to Google that. And then he is telling me that if you go to congress.gov/bill, I think he's going to put the link. I'm going to get you the link so that you can do it. It's too long.
I found it in the, I just dropped it in the chat.
Perfect. We have about a dozen co-sponsors. You and I both know there's a lot of members of Congress around the country that are saying, I'm going to detention centers. I'm outraged what happened to Liam. I'm outraged what happened to Stephen. No one should die. in detention will then help me melt ice and end detention and become a co-sponsor.
So again, you all, it's HR 7190 is
HR.
HR 7190 if you want to read the text. Now, we had someone else who was asking, they said, my congressperson is a staunch Trump supporter. Should I keep calling them? What should I be doing?
Absolutely yes, because they like it or not, they represent you. You're their constituent. So keep calling and keep calling, keep organizing. And look, I would say to you, many of them are not doing town halls because they know that they're inconsistent with what their constituents are asking of them. But if they do a town hall, they do a teletown hall, show up and ask them. I think the fact that there is enough of these Republicans who are beginning to say, whoa, maybe Kristi Noem shouldn't spend $70 million on a private jet. Maybe we should look into some of these detention centers. Maybe a 5-year-old shouldn't be in a cage. It tells me that they need to keep hearing from you so that maybe becomes a certainty.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again so much, Congresista Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
We are so grateful that you were able to join us this evening. And we're going to pass it over to John Boniface, who's our good friend who joins us on these town halls frequently from Free Speech for People, who's going to talk more about concrete actions that we can be up to.
Thank you, Tamika. Great to be with all of you. We're so proud to be part of this town hall with Congresswoman Ramirez, with Women's March, Feminist Generation, Detention Watch Network, and with all of you listening. This is a fight for our democracy and our Constitution. ICE is a lawless agency. It's proven that to be the case over the past year, but we know even before then it was engaged in lawlessness. And J.D. Vance has said that there is absolute immunity for federal agents to do what they're doing across the country. There is no such thing as absolute immunity. This is a complete fabrication of the law. The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution allows for federal agents to conduct their lawful duties all across the country, but they do not have immunity to commit murder, to kidnap, to engage in assault and battery, to engage in illegal detentions. And that's what ICE is engaged with all across the country. They're terrorizing our communities. And that is why we have joined the call to abolish ICE, to end immigration imprisonment. And that's why we're a proud endorser of Congresswoman Ramirez's Melt ICE Act. And this, as the Congresswoman has stated, this will be the way we ultimately end ICE and dismantle DHS, which must happen to protect the public, to protect our communities, and to ensure that we have the rule of law restored with respect to the way we carry out our federal policies. We cannot allow these federal agents to run rogue across the country and terrorize our communities like they've been doing, and we must hold them accountable. We fully agree with Congresswoman Ramirez on that as well. That is why at Free Speech for People, on a parallel level, we have been calling on state and local prosecutors across the country to enforce state criminal laws against federal agents, including ICE agents, when they violate those laws in their jurisdictions. So at Free Speech for People, we're engaged in fighting with all of you and all of our partners on this call to abolish ICE and to end immigration imprisonment. And we have a email system you can quickly link to your member of Congress to urge them to co-sponsor the Melt ICE Act. And it's there on the screen for you, win.numo.net/melt-ice. And if you go on to that link, you'll get right to your member of Congress with an email that you can send urging that they co-sponsor this important piece of legislation. Congresswoman Ramirez has said there are a dozen co-sponsors. There need obviously to be many, many more. And for all those members who are stating that they're troubled or they're horrified by what ICE is engaged in doing, they need to sign on to this bill and become a co-sponsor. So we urge you to contact your member of Congress and urge that they sign on as a co-sponsor. And we can together, I fully agree with Tamika on this, we can end this lawlessness, this agency, we can break down this wall, and we can protect our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John. It is always a pleasure and a joy. If y'all have questions, again, Congresswoman Ramirez had to leave us, but we still will be answering questions towards the end. So if you have questions, please do put them in the chat. We are tracking them. I want to now we're going to really draw a bridge, right? Because we want to be clear that the fight to end ICE is not separate from the fight to build a feminist movement that brings justice for survivors of sexual violence. I've seen a number of you all in the chat referencing the blue butterfly zones in the Dilley Detention Center, or word of this, these blue butterfly zones. And also Congresswoman Ramirez made the connection to talking about sexual violence inside of detention centers. And I want to be very, very clear that it is essential that we build a feminist movement to end sexual violence. It is essential. And that fight is not disconnected from the fight to end ICE. I love to quote Angela Davis. She says, radical means getting at the root. And if we understand that at the root, these are the same issue. It is the same in power, be that because of patriarchy, be that because of capitalism, be that because of white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to talk about that. We want to get into that. And so from our good partners at Feminist Generation, Rosie Couture, thank you so much. And I'm going to bring Rosie to the stage.
Thank you so much, Tamika. Hello, everybody. Hi, y'all. I'm so grateful to be here tonight, to be in community tonight. Like Tamika said, all of these issues are interconnected. They are all a part of building a feminist future, and I'm glad to be here to talk a little bit about that tonight. My name is Rosie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a co-director of Feminist Generation. We are a movement of young people from across the country who are organizing our peers and organizing our communities to demand intersectional gender justice from the ground up. And yeah, Feminist Generation is grateful to be here tonight alongside Women's March, Free Speech for People, Detention Watch Network, and Congresswoman Ramirez as we organize with brave women this International Women's Day in this really crucial moment in history where we all really have to come together, because we know we are powerful when we come together and when we demand justice for our communities together, because together we win. So I'm grateful to be here today. And I'm coming from an organization that is led by and for young women, young girls, and queer youth. And we are done with the attacks on our lives, the attacks on our bodies, our futures, and our communities. We demand ICE get off our streets and off our campuses, and we demand the immediate abolition of ICE and an end to the violence that they bring on our communities, especially gendered and sexual violence. And like Tamika said, we demand justice for survivors of all forms of gender-based and state violence. Like I said, I come from an organization of young women, girls, and queer youth, and we are leading in the fight to demand justice for survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. As young people, we are calling on every individual and every institution connected to Epstein's abuse to resign from their positions of power. And I'm talking all positions of power, from their offices to their boardrooms to their professorships and their podiums. And we not only call on them to resign, but to repair the harm that they have enabled and perpetrated. We join our allies in Congress in demanding the full release of the Epstein files and further investigation into perpetrators and their accomplices, including through congressional hearings and investigation. We demand the resignation of anyone who participated in or enabled Epstein's abuse from their positions of power. And as students, we especially demand the resignation of the many university leaders and professors affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein's violence. And like I said, beyond resignation, we demand real repair and real justice. We demand material reparations paid by complicit individuals and institutions to support survivor needs and survivor demands and invest in sexual violence prevention. We as feminists refuse to let this cover up and injustice continue. And we stand with the survivors, and we rise up as the feminists of America to say that we have had enough. We demand justice for survivors. Who's with me? Can people put in the chat justice for survivors? Yep, exactly. This International Women's Day, we are proud to join our partners at Women's March and calling on feminists across the country to mobilize for justice for survivors. Feminist Generation particularly calls on young people. We call on students to organize actions on March 9th on their campuses to demand Epstein off campus. We are calling on students to demand the resignation of university leadership and professors who are Epstein affiliates. And we further call on our universities to repair harm through investing in sexual violence prevention and resources for survivors on our campuses. And we will continue to fight in our communities and on campuses across the country to demand justice for survivors. Exactly. I'm loving seeing these comments come through. And further, as a youth feminist organization, we call on folks to join us in demanding justice for trans youth who have also been repeatedly attacked by this administration and denied justice. As young feminists, we know that trans youth deserve joy, they deserve safety, dignity, and life-saving, gender-affirming healthcare. And so we call on our community here today to rise up for trans youth and fight back against this administration's policies that have banned trans youth from sports and denied them access to gender-affirming care. We call on feminists to contact their representatives to demand an end to these attacks. We call on feminists to demand their local governments and hospitals in their communities do not comply with these attacks. Our local government leaders and our local hospitals do not have to comply with Trump's demands to freeze gender-affirming care. We call on folks here to show up in their communities to demand they don't. So if y'all are with me here too, go ahead and put a protect trans youth in the chat. Awesome. Great. And as young feminists, like Tamika said, we understand that all these fights are interconnected. So we're so glad to be here tonight and to be mobilizing this International Women's Day. All these issues are feminist issues, and together we're going to build a feminist future. Thanks so much, folks.
Thank you so much, Rosie. Listen, I don't think that I can say enough about how much we love Feminist Generation. I don't think I can say enough about how much we love taking the leadership of young folks and especially young feminists. So thank you all so much for everything that you're doing. And I know, again, people are like, what can we be up to? And as I mentioned at the top of the call, we are standing together on International Women's Day on March 8th. And Rosie, Feminist Generation, and college students are taking to their campuses on March 9th. And we're calling on you all to take action wherever you are, whatever that action looks like. We want to say, if you want to, walk out, if you want to do a banner drop, if you want to do a creative action, some wheat pasting, whatever it is you want to be up to, you want to do, a knitting. We know some of these folks love to do fiber arts. So if that's your vibe, if that's where you fit in, come on and get in, okay? And as for us at Team Women's March, we are taking the fight to Albuquerque, to the streets of Albuquerque this March 8th. And I know that folks saw the announcement, and some of you may be like, Albuquerque? And we are going to Albuquerque specifically because, if you recall, that is where Zorro Ranch is located. And that is where Jeffrey Epstein, for many years, trafficked and sexually assaulted girls and women, operating with total impunity in the state of New Mexico. And girls as young as 15 years old were abused on that property, and federal law enforcement never searched the ranch once. For decades, it sat untouched while powerful men protected each other. Now, New Mexico is finally acting. The Attorney General, Raul Torres, has reopened the criminal investigation. The state legislature just passed H.R. 1 unanimously to create a truth commission with subpoena power. That's very important, y'all. It is a truth commission with subpoena power. We are caravanning from Albuquerque to the ranch with Women's March New Mexico to put a national spotlight on this investigation and on this demand. Every individual and institution connected to Epstein's abuse must resign from positions of power and commit to real survivor-led reparations. We want to make sure that survivors in New Mexico know that they deserve, and we know that they deserve to know that millions of people are behind them and that no one is looking the other way anymore. And so what we also know is the walls are closing in, y'all. Prince Andrew was just arrested. Congress is deposing billionaires under oath. The Epstein files are public, and there are thousands of references to this ranch in those documents. The elites who thought that they were untouchable are finally facing accountability. And yet, the Trump DOJ, which only released the files because Congress forced their hand, is dragging its feet on prosecution and actively obstructing survivor justice, shielding allies of this administration from accountability. At the same time, this regime is sending ICE into our communities to attack, abuse, and kidnap women and children. Same pattern, y'all. Powerful men and powerful institutions brutalizing women and children, brutalizing folks who are less powerful, and a government that protects those abusers. This is International Women's Day. We are not letting this moment pass. So on March 8th, we are launching a caravan from Albuquerque to Zorro Ranch, organized with Women's March to Mexico, that will build visibility and momentum with stops along the route, arriving at the ranch for a rally in solidarity with survivors. Our demand is resign and repair. Anyone who participated in, enabled, or benefited from Epstein's abuse must step down from positions of power and commit to reparations. No more protection, no more impunity, no more power without consequences. All right, y'all? So we're going to invite y'all, if you are anywhere in driving distance of Albuquerque, or you want to fly to Albuquerque, come through. Come join us in Albuquerque as we rally there. And again, we will caravan over to Zorro Ranch. And so we want you to also, I want to ask if our if my tech person can, Shauna, if you can drop the link to the petition, to the resign and repair petition into the chat, so you can also sign the resign and repair petition as well. Yes, resign repair, that's right. And also, you don't have to be in New Mexico in order to join us. You don't have to join us in Albuquerque. You can also join or organize an action in your community, wherever you are across the country. So we're going to drop some links in the chat. We want you all to get down with us. We want you all to take action. And if you want to find the map and find out how to take action with us, you can go to bravewomen.us. And that is where you can find a map. And on that map, you can find an action that's already existing near you, or you can add an action. You can organize something. Y'all, you don't need us to tell you that you can do it. You don't need anyone to tell you you can do it. You don't need to have done it before. You don't need to have hundreds of people there. You just need to do it, y'all. You just need to step in. We just need you to take one step, whatever that is, right? It can be 5 of y'all doing a banner drop. It can be 10 of y'all wheat pasting across town. Whatever that looks like, we welcome every single action. So we're going to get the link so we can drop it in there. But that can be crafting and commiserating. You can host a mutual aid action or planning session. You can do a sit-in, whatever you want to do, whatever feels impactful for you and your communities, we invite y'all. So again, that's March 8th, International Women's Day. Take action to protect and fight on behalf of the survivors of violence, be that state violence or sexual violence. All right, I'm going to be quiet now. And I know that folks have questions. I'm not going to totally be quiet, y'all. I know that folks have questions. I'm going to bring the rest of our speakers to the stage so we can answer some of these questions. All right. Okay. So this first question, I am going to bring up, John, I feel like you might be the perfect person to answer this one. Are articles of impeachment, are they being brought to the floor for Trump, Bondi, Noem, etc.?
Yeah, thank you, Tamika. This is a really good question, right? There are articles of impeachment that have been introduced against Kristi Noem, as well as other Trump officials. But the key thing is that under House Rule 9, any article of impeachment is considered to be a privileged resolution, which means a House member can force a floor vote at any time invoking that rule. To my knowledge, there's been no effort yet to invoke House Rule 9 for those articles of impeachment pending against Noam and other Trump officials. The only time it's been invoked is by Congressman Green in June of last year and in December of last year in his articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, which we were proud to join him in helping to draft. And he saw a 77% increase from the June vote to the December vote. In December, 140 members joined in advancing articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, which was a significant development in the overall movement to use the impeachment power. But the question is right on in terms of the need to bring more floor votes. There's no reason why we shouldn't be having multiple House floor votes on impeachment of Trump, of Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and all of these officials who are committing high crimes against the state on a daily basis and need to face the impeachment power.
Yes, I know. John, I'm curious. I hadn't heard mention of Representative Summer Lee, maybe bringing some articles of impeachment around Pam Bondi. I'm curious if you have any information about that, maybe.
Yes, in fact, she has announced that she will, and we're pleased to be working with her office on the drafting of those articles, and I think that will happen very soon.
So keep your eyes open, friends, for that. I want to ask you one of the things that we saw a number of questions, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but it came up a few times in the comments about Dilley and about the conditions for young girls in the detention center. And I'm curious if you have any information or anything you want to share about that.
Sure. I mean, I think that I also saw this come up in the chat earlier. In general, with detention centers, it's extremely hard to get information out from detention centers. All of the usual ways that we have been able to monitor what's going on in these facilities are being cut off. The administration is trying really hard to obstruct any oversight. Members of Congress are supposed to have they do have the right to conduct unannounced inspections of these facilities. And yet we have seen so many members of Congress show up and be denied entry. So, what I can say about the conditions is that, we know from attorneys that we're in touch with that are able to get some access, that are representing families in that facility, that conditions are awful. We know that, children are terrified. I would highly encourage folks, if they're interested, we work with a coalition that is really focused on detention at Dilley and family detention in general. And we have a campaign going where we're encouraging folks to basically decorate paper dolls in solidarity with the children inside of the facility. And we try to get them the images that folks are drawing, and we deliver those also to members of Congress. We've had children inside the facility color these dolls and send them and have been able to get some of them to members of Congress. It's really heartbreaking what is happening in this facility, that there are children here who their lives are being interrupted, their education is being interrupted, they're suffering in a way that we can't even know fully what they're suffering through, and it will haunt them and their families for the rest of their lives, no matter how much time they spend. So it's a really good question. I don't have the answer specifically because there's so much obstruction that it's hard for us to know exactly what's going on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Rosie, I'm going to toss this one your way. We're talking about actions. And one of the things that, I have thoughts on this question, of course, as a Mobilization Forward organization, but I'm curious if you could talk some about what might be some of the utility of doing virtual events and hosting sort of virtual events.
Absolutely. I mean, I just got to say, no action is too small, right? We really need folks to plug in wherever they can. And, you know, I grew up in Florida and Georgia. I grew up in places where sometimes it was hard to get together in person with other people. So if the only way that you can take action is virtual, that's, you know, that's where you're at, and you can still make really meaningful change. Virtual Zooms and events and being in chat rooms with people is still a way to build community, connect people to resources, give people love and care. These are all really important things in our fight, right? Also, you know, you can call your representatives together. You can call your local universities and hospitals and any institution that needs to hear that they need to step up and fight back for our communities, right? So I think, you know, folks got to take action wherever they can. And a lot of really powerful things can happen through virtual events. I mean, we're here all tonight right now virtually, you know, getting really important information, understanding our next steps. And this is how movements are made.
And I'll just add to that and say that, you know, our audience, when we do mobilizations, we do actions, can be multiple, right? They are sometimes to get the attention of people in power and to put pressure on people in power. And sometimes our goal is actually to do what Rosie said, which is to build community, to make sure that people know that they are not alone, to gather, to build infrastructure. Because if we have learned nothing else from what has taken place in Minneapolis, is that and in the Twin Cities, is that infrastructure is vital if we're going to fight back against what this regime is doing. Is that being in community and building the kind of community that can respond is vital. If not for the mutual aid networks, if not for the infrastructure built in 2020 through George Floyd and so on and so forth, the response, the tremendous outpouring of resistance that we saw would not be possible. And so we acted, we mobilized to do many, many things. And sometimes that is because we want to have masses in the streets to show our people power. Sometimes that is because we want to escalate and put pressure and make spectacle. And sometimes it is so we can gather, so we can build infrastructure, so we can build relationship, so that we can build a stronger movement. It is going to take a big movement of many of us, an inclusive movement that includes people who might have disabilities and cannot join us in person, who might be in rural communities isolated but still want to be in connection. We need all of those folks, every single one of us, every single time we act. So that, for me, is also why at the core that virtual events feel really important and really vital at this time. Get me off my high horse. There is another, let's see. There's a question about I'm gonna pass this one to you again, Saturday. This is around like what kind of legal actions can people take, or what can people do when they hear about cases, these individual cases where immigrant folks are impacted and they may not have legal support, they may not have infrastructural support. What can folks do in order to support them?
Sure, I can answer that question, but I'm also looking at the comment and just want to uplift the name of Nurul Amin Alam, who was found dead in the last day or so. Border Patrol had just left him. They'd picked him up and just left him in a parking lot. He was illegally blind. And so this is just the latest tragic example of the violence and callous indifference that these agents have to the people that are in their custody. And, you know, this is not something new. You know, for years, we have seen that when people are, you know, able, I mean, this is almost never happens these days, but when people have been released on bond or otherwise released from ICE detention, they are just left. You know, they don't notify people's families. They don't help arrange transportation. They just leave people in places where they have, you know, there's no access to transportation. Their family doesn't know where they are. So sadly, this death is not surprising, and it's really on par with what we've seen ICE and Border Patrol do for years now. In terms of, you know, legal action, people have brought lawsuits. There's many organizations across the country that offer legal services, and some that focus on these sort of wrongful death claims. So that is there, and is something that, if the person has support, happy to, if folks out there have neighbors, friends, family that are going through a situation like this, we're happy to help put them in touch with, the right resources. But I think what I want to underscore here is that, again, this is something that we've seen again and again for years, because ICE and CBP have been allowed to act with total impunity and have not been responsible for any of the abuses that they have carried out. So that's why it's so important to cut their funding right now. And that's why it's so important for things like Melt ICE to really gain traction. We need co-sponsors. We need that bill to pass. We need an introduction in the Senate. That's the way towards justice. A lawsuit will never bring a loved one back. A bill will never bring loved ones back. But if we can prevent this harm from happening again, that is one step towards justice. And that requires legislative change and action.
Tamika, can I just jump in on this one as well?
Absolutely.
I fully agree with everything Satare has just said. I just want to add that this is criminal behavior. This is absolute criminal behavior. And there is accountability, as a Congresswoman stated, that also must happen here with respect to those agents and those directing them who engage in committing state crimes. So one additional piece of this is that the district attorney for this jurisdiction ought to open a criminal investigation into the agents that left this individual in that parking lot, knowing that he was legally blind and knowing that it would lead to his potential death. That is an investigation that ought to proceed. And we, as the public, can demand that those who are in these positions of power to enforce state criminal laws ought to be doing that against federal agents when they commit crimes in their jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of our speakers. Please, if you are on Facebook and you want to do a reaction emoji for our speakers, if you are in the chat and you just want to offer your gratitude, thank you again, John. Thank you again, Sethara. Thank you again, Rosie, and to all of the organizations that, and also to Congresista Ramirez. Like, we just want to show our appreciation, our gratitude for the work that y'all are in and up to every single day. And we want to continue to invite you all to take action, whatever that action may be. For some folks, that action may look like getting hundreds of people in the streets. For some folks, that action might look like going directly to Zorro Ranch and being in the face of those folks and calling for accountability there. For some folks, it might look like, building mutual aid and wherever we see ICE coming next. We listen to the State of the Union. We have some sense of what this president and his regime are up to and are about to be up to. The way they spoke about DC and the way they spoke about LA in juxtaposition to DC, I think is important for us to pay attention to, and what they continue to do on the streets in DC, in Minneapolis, in Memphis, and across the country. I just was watching the video of the testimony of the wife of a man that was killed in DC by federal agents just within the past few weeks. And so it's very important for us to take whatever action feels relevant, feels impactful for you. We are trying to build our collective capacity, not just for rallies and mass mobilization. We think that's important. Of course, we're Women's March, but we're trying to build our collective capacity for non-cooperation. And that can look like so many things. That whatever that looks like for you, whatever brave action, cooperative action, whatever action you can take to demonstrate your lack of willingness to comply with this system, we want you to do that. All right. So I'm gonna let our speakers get some rest while I close us out. And just say this again, thank you to everyone. Remember to reach out to your members of Congress. That I'm going to put the website up again, where you can reach out to those members of Congress and tell them to support and co-sponsor the Melt ICE. So here it is again on your screens. Please do that, y'all, because like Seth today was just saying, it is imperative. It is imperative that we get more co-sponsors, and it is imperative that we get rid of this, terrible institution this fraudulent institution. And then I want you to remember also to go ahead to bravewomen.us and find an action near you or organize an action near you. If you live in or near DC and you said, I want to figure out how to demonstrate there. If you live in or near New Mexico and you want to do something there, if you know that there is someone in the Epstein cabal that lives near where you are or work, or their headquarters for their major corporation is near you, go ahead and organize an action there, friends. We want to show up for you. We want to support that. So go ahead and sign up and turn out. If you are on a college campus and you want to bring out your classmates and your friends, that is the call that Feminist Generation is making. We would love to see you do that and put that on the map so that other folks can find you. If you registered for this town hall, all the resources and all the links will be sent out to you via email tomorrow. And if you missed anything, if you're like, I forgot what that link was, or I want to hear John preach that sermon one more time, you will be able to find the replay on our YouTube channel. All right. So once again, thank you all so much for coming out. We know that y'all could have chose to be anywhere, but you chose to be here with us. And we appreciate that every single time. And what we always say here at Women's March is we will see you in the streets. Good night, y'all.